Welcome, everybody. We are back with another candid conversation here. I am fortunate to have a very good friend and colleague here with us, Bolu Oladini. Bolu, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's Friday, and it should be a fun and interesting conversation. So good to be here.
Absolutely. So, Bolu, please tell the audience about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I do so many things these days. It's almost a loaded question, but I guess as it pertains to this conversation, I'm a pharmacist by training. Right now, I work in the pharmaceutical industry at Pfizer. Um, and my background is mostly like medical strategy, scientific communication. For a while, I was in direct patient care for a couple of years, then got into medical communications on the agency side. So I did that for about a year before I, then joined a mid-size company in kind of a medical strategy role on a contract, and then um, spent another year there, and now I'm here at Pfizer. So I've moved around quite a bit, but I think the benefit of that is I've seen different environments, met lots of different people, different working styles. So I've seen a lot. So I think that enables me to be more innovative or creative, or just have a different perspective on things, and to be a bit more perceptive, and see things that others might not, and and also make connections. So um, yeah, I mean, there's a whole nother rabbit hole I could jump to down there, but I guess, yeah, I was introducing myself, right? So, yeah, so we do some really cool things with AI and medical content, and how to, kind of modernize it to improve time and cost efficiencies without sacrificing quality of content, right? Because, there are a lot of clinicians and HCPs have like overload and burnout, and there's so much information out there. The pace is only increasing, right? And these clinicians have less and less time trying to use AI as a tool to solve, information overload a bit.
So the role you're in right now, very exciting role, Bolo. I was very excited when I saw that you updated your LinkedIn with that information. You're in a very exciting space right now. It's a little bit net new as well as far as what the implications are, what the technology can do. Can you talk at a high level about some of the work that you actually do right now with Pfizer and what that work looks and feels like?
Yeah, I mean, so I think kind of zooming out for a bit, right? Because I can't get into like too many specifics, but like what like you
Absolutely.
said, it is like net new, right? And I mean, I feel like most people have heard like those buzzwords or whatever, but just at its core, and I'll try to make this make sense and connect, right? Because these large language models, they're extremely good at like, reading, writing, extracting information, summarizing information, identifying patterns. So, it turns out those are really good, useful skill sets in medical communications, right? In scientific research and publications, right? Like there's a lot of overlap in what language models are naturally good at, and what you as a human do to to read scientific research, or to summarize it, or to present it, or whatever the case may be, right? So from that standpoint, there's already a lot of synergy, right? And then I think the other component of like, oh, just theoretically, if you're like, okay, well, we're going to integrate AI into the medical communications, like, oh, well, does that mean is the AI an author now? Like, is the stuff just going to be writing stuff, and you're just going to, have no oversight over it? Because that's a big concern too. But, um, I think I guess I had a unique lens on the issue at the time when I kind of came across this idea, right? Because I was in the process of publishing my book, which I actually released recently. But I actually used generative AI to draft some ideas and to give me some initial first drafts, right? And then also kind of simultaneously, due to like, work stuff and other personal projects, I have been like a published author, and been involved in like the peer review process. So for me, I just looked at it like another tool, like, oh, the same way you hire a writing agency, an agency to help you draft the thing, like they're not going to be an author, right? But they assisted with the work, right? So like so it kind of goes back to authorship criteria, right? Which the ICMJE sets out. So that's the International Council for Medical Journal Editors.
Let's not just skip past that gem you just dropped. So you wrote a book. Do you want to share just real quick about that book?
But yeah, so this idea of authorship, right? Because I might miss some of the criteria, but you know, you have to be responsible for like the conception or significant contributions to like the design of the research. You have to accept accountability for all aspects of the research. You have to have there's an aspect of taking accountability and responsibility that's associated with authorship that like AI just can't do, right? So from that perspective, that's kind of assuage some of my concerns, right? But I guess if we kind of swing back to the personal side and some of the other stuff I do there, yeah, I think I do so many things that I am naturally kind of curious and experimental to where I figured, hey, if I can use this Gen AI or these language models to be more efficient or to get better results or to, you know, somehow squeeze more results out of the limited time that I have, you know, that has been like the big impetus for me, right? Because I don't know, it sounds really weird, but nobody has ever gotten any time back, right? In recorded history, nobody's ever gotten 1 minute back, right? Like you'd have to have a
Yeah.
time machine, right? It's not possible right now. It's science fiction, right? But for me, like the next best thing is efficiencies or systems or you know things you can use to be more efficient in your day to day to where what took you an hour it takes you half an hour. What took you half an hour it takes you 10 minutes, right? Like now you're freeing up your time and in a sense, you know, you're getting your time back just on a macro level, right? So it's almost like time travel. I'm not really like time travel, but it's like you're getting your time back, right?
Being
And for
more
me, I
efficient.
just value my time, you know, very much. You know, just I just try to live with a little bit of a kind of like a sense of urgency, not like in a rushed way, but just in a let me not waste time and be intentional kind of a way, right?
Yeah. So I want to pivot back a little bit to what you mentioned before. You gave the overview of some of the work that you're doing right now at Pfizer. So when I think about the different areas where, AI can potentially assist, are you doing work right now with any functional areas?
Yeah, all kinds of publications, plain language summaries, enhanced content, you know, even like third party stuff, like things that might go on QXMD or Doximity or you know, some of these platforms are like Pfizer owned social
Yeah.
media, right? So like LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever medical sites. We work hand in hand with the people who are doing both the publications and then like the internal medical to medical content. You know, stuff for like field medical or things of that nature. Medical affairs, medical strategy, like field medical. We have like counterparts on like the commercial side and stuff too, but we're more focused on the medical. But you know, we have different kind of AI teams that are even more like R&D focused too.
Referencing the conversation I had with Ike previously, he mentioned that he sees AI transforming areas such as drug discovery, clinical trial design, even personalized medicine. That may be a little bit, too far in the future from where you guys are at, but do you see that also as areas where AI could play a role?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, I think anywhere where there's a lot of, you know, unstructured data or where there's a lot of manual kind of review, anywhere where there's just like lengthy processes, you know, I think AI can have a big impact, right? I mean, it's already been used in like drug discovery, like, you know, for a while now, but I think at least a lot of the difference I see is you know, like post commercialization, you know, like medical affairs, like, you know, on the commercial side, even like pharmacovigilance, you know, I'm seeing like, you know, MedInfo capabilities that are using like, you know, AI and stuff, right? So I think it's not a matter of if it can transform it, it's more of which companies are going to be the first to successfully like implement and scale it, right? Because I guess I'm fortunate, or I guess, you know, we work in like, I guess AI basically, you know, 5 days a week. So I try not to spend too much time on like theoretical discussions. I want to know like who's actually doing stuff, who's building stuff, like what did you build? What were some challenges? And how can we learn from that, right? A lot of it comes down to like change management, operationalizing, certain processes, is the data in place, right? So like, you're going to be working with a lot of data scientists, things like that, right? Like, can you speak their language and have like a common understanding? Sometimes, or I guess the challenges with like getting something off the ground are a little bit different than the challenges of like scaling something or trying to, yeah, but no, but it is, I mean, there are a lot of potential.
Yeah. So you talk about, some of the challenges. I think that's a good pivot. Can you share what you think some of the biggest opportunity areas are facing the implementation of generative AI?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, opportunity areas facing implementation. I mean, it's such a big question. I'm like, all right, where do I start? I think the how people perceive it is very important. So like the psychological component, people's like mindset. I guess I study psychology in undergrad, so a lot of times that's like one of my, I guess, default ways of analyzing things. But I think in this case it is really pertinent because in popular culture there's a lot of the okay, like the robot apocalypse or oh, the robot's going to take over and things like that. And then typically there's, I don't know, the media tends to like fearmonger, like, oh, AI is going to do this or do that or whatever, right? And then there's naturally like, oh, am I going to lose my job because of AI, right? Is it going to replace me? And those kinds of things, right? Right. And you're not talking about the real issue. I think some of the big things are just like trying to align people's incentives wherever you can to where it's in everyone's best interest to kind of upskill or I don't know. I mean, sometimes but business relationships can have just realities, right? Of maybe
Yeah.
cuts or whatever type of situation, right? But yeah, I mean, so I think that's one big thing is the perception, right? Because so there's actually research that has shown that like for an identical situation of like medical advice being given, patients favored the advice that was labeled as human generated over the advice that was either AI generated or like human plus AI, right? But
Which
that was
makes
just kind
sense.
of like a simple explanation of like a baseline of AI did this, humans and AI did this, or a human did this, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm actually interested in a lot of, doing more research into, okay, well, if AI did it, but we explain how the human was involved, does that change the perception, right?
And I mean, that makes sense though, right? It makes sense that they'd want to prefer information that was human generated because there is still some of that fear or angst surrounding AI and what are its capabilities and what can it really do. One thing that I've noticed when talking to different colleagues, even with the pharmacy students I work with, a lot of them have a fear, as you mentioned, that AI is here to take my job, or there's still a little bit of angst as to what AI can do. And there's some fear in, learning more about it or trying to apply it in your day-to-day activities. What's the rationale or what advice would you give to stakeholders as to why it's important to embrace AI?
Okay, yeah, I'll give you two answers. One is more philosophical and esoteric, and the other one will be more practical. So the first thing is I've never, at least in my, I don't know, 33 years on this earth, I've never been in a situation where I reflected and I felt that like fear was like a useful and productive emotion, right? Where like, if there was like legitimate concern or like danger or risk or anything that could be quantified and like analyzed or further broken down versus just fear, right? Because I think it's that people fear what they don't understand, right?
Yep.
So from that standpoint, I would say just get curious, become like a child again. I think this might go on to a long soapbox, but um, a lot of people don't haven't cultivated, whether through their fault or through the educational system or whatever, they haven't cultivated like critical thinking, right? They haven't cultivated like a kind of an experimental, kind of scientific mindset of being able to ask the right questions and deal with ambiguity. Yeah, I think like the people who are more comfortable being told what to do and being told how to think versus the people who are more like curious or intrinsically motivated. You can be driven by like the fear and the
Yeah.
negativity and the anxiety and all this other stuff, or you can flip that and try to focus on the positive and just be an optimist and be like, all right, well, let's be driven by like love and curiosity and I don't know, genuine interest, right? So, and the other thing too is these robots can't, they don't like anything dealing with emotions or relationships, they they can't beat humans, right? Because humans can form relationships, they can read people's emotions, sarcasm, like all these interpersonal aspects, AI can't do that, right? So that's where our advantages over the AI, right? So I think for some people, it's probably a bit of a shock because they're used to being measured by money, knowledge, productivity. Like, they want to do, and be measured by what they do. But now it's like, all right, well, AI can do a lot. It can do a whole lot, right? So to me, now it's more like, all right, what can you be or what kind of, more of the, I guess the softer skills, right? But like, I've heard it said, okay, soft skills are the new hard skills, or okay, like that, all that stuff matters more now, right? Which I think is very true, right? So like emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, building relationships, anything that makes us human, I think is the
Yeah.
advantage now, right? So I say lean into your humanity and get curious.
The one thing that I make sure I try to share with colleagues or students, you can't be afraid to embrace these third-party AI systems because they're not here to take your role or take your job. Ultimately, I look at it more as a foundational tool to structure the way you're going to do your resource or the research with where you're going to do your engagement or the way you're going to look into forming any kind of change or operational improvement in your organization. So I see it more as a foundational tool so you have a starting point as to here's what I should be considering. And then from there, you use your expertise, you use your resources around you to build from the ground up.
Yeah, I think for me, I just kind of thrive in that environment. So like for me, I look at it like this is like a level playing field because this snuck up on 95% of everybody. So for me, it's like, all right, well, this is a level playing field. So if I just start now or start sooner and get ahead of people, then I mean, I don't know. I mean, even now, honestly, I'd say the difference between like the average person and being like a AI quote unquote expert in terms of just like time or investment or whatever, it's actually not as big as people would think. At least for the path I've taken and some of the stuff I've done. I mean, there's so many great courses on like Coursera, Udemy, like there's a lot of great information out there. And some people get stuck in analysis paralysis or fear holds them back, right? And I guess back to my book, right? I'm an author, so this is a shameless plug, right? But I have a whole chapter on dealing with fear, right? It's called Remove the Power of Fear from Your Life, right? Because I mean, well, I guess we didn't even mention the title of my book. This might not really show actually. Oh,
There
okay.
you go.
You can kind of see it there. Yeah, it's called
Yep.
Diamond at Your Rock Bottom, Adversity to Triumph Through Post-Traumatic Growth. But yeah, there's a whole chapter on dealing with fear because, I think if you let it, like fear will just, it'll destroy your dreams, it'll kill, everything you want, right? So yeah, it's called The Power and Let It Go of Fear. So I have a lot of quotes and different topics and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I could go through different quotes like only thing to fear is fear itself. Fear is just basically the lowest vibration you could have, right? From a scientific perspective, the fear is mostly based in your amygdala, and that's like part of like it's close to your brainstem. So like once that takes over, like everything else shuts down. All reason, all analysis, your prefrontal cortex, all that good stuff gets shut down, and fear hijacks you, right? So like
Yeah.
literally if you're in fear you can't move beyond that because there's everything else gets frozen, right? So for me it's like if I could just avoid the fear and just like try to analyze things, it's like okay, if I feel the fear, it's like okay, where's it coming from? Let's break it down, right? What can I do to counteract that? Emotions are just kind of signals, right? But if you could just take the action based on the signal instead of just being just kind of froze or stuck from that emotion when it's really just a signal trying to tell you what to do, right?
Fear is the might killer. I might do something. I might go
Yeah.
on that date. I might apply for that job. Fear is definitely the might killer. I do have one more quick question
Okay.
for you. We'll wrap up with this one. as far as the immediate needs, what would you say is an immediate need or something that either generative AI needs or you need or Pfizer may need as far as here's what we could use some immediate assistance on?
No, I mean, I guess I'll speak to the industry as a whole because, I know what we're doing at Pfizer and I've seen what some other companies are doing. I think what a lot of companies could really benefit from, or the industry as a whole would benefit from, is some organizational rethinking as far as how generative AI can fit with these other functions, right? Because I see a lot of like AI is kind of in their own silo, they're kind of their own department, and like maybe they do something with other departments, maybe they don't, but it ends up being a lot of theorizing and theoretically and a lot of use cases without the implementation, right? So you have to have the AI experts and the subject matter experts in the same room, on the same team, on the same calls, right? And maybe even in some kind of working group together, right? Or depending on what's the objective or the outcome of the project, right?
So is the immediate opportunity publishing content at a quicker and more efficient pace? Or is it something different?
No, I mean, I guess I'm speaking to moving the industry forward as a whole. I mean, I think the immediate need is more like capability or from like a talent perspective, or just even, or I guess the way we're trying to work, if that's valid, then hopefully it's an effective way of working, right? But integrating AI in these different functions is going to take a new way of working and a new way of thinking about how to structure teams.